Welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast that has the science and the screaming to unequivocally figure out what the best movie is of any given year. This year is 2002, and this is the first real movie. Before I introduce this week's panelists, know this. This show will also be a game in which points are awarded for well-made arguments, cogent thoughts about the film, jokes, and anything else I feel like awarding. The winner will be my best friend for a week and have gloating rights.
Yeah.
Battling for said gloating rights he's been shockingly quiet so far, Ryan.
Oh, I think I'm a changed man, Mikey. I want you to have the best season possible, and so I've decided that I'm not going to be your opponent. I'm not going to. Fuck you.
Didn't last very long, Ryan.
And that is Greg, who was gloating that Ryan dug his own hole.
I love gloating, and I encourage Ryan digging his own hole. You know what, buddy? It's your hole. If you want to dig it, dig away.
Do you guys think that you could describe my entire personality in saying I watch somebody get points, and then I do the same thing, and then they get points for that as well?
Yes.
That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, you are next in the phrasal dictionary that we all know we have, Thomas's phrasal dictionary. Hoisted by his own petard, there's a picture of you, my friend.
Getting absolutely fucking hoisted by your own petard.
And it's a petard that you own.
Yeah, you made it. You filled it up with gunpowder. You buried it under the earth, and then you yourself were hoisted upon it.
Wait, is that what a petard is?
It's like a landmine.
Oh,
a lot of people think it's like a spear, but
I thought it was
not.
something on a boat.
I thought it was a giant mushroom.
No, it's like an explosive, and to get hoisted, it's like you put out your own landmine, and then you step on it.
That's petarded.
I just think that, like, the word hoist... And I think a pulley system. If somebody gets blown up, I'm like, well, they got hoisted across that field.
Yeah, well, it comes from Shakespeare.
That guy.
A known stupid idiot.
Were there landmines back then?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Where do you get gold? Sea mines? Idiot.
You know what? Didn't think about that, Ryan.
Now I feel dumb.
I want to
Forgot
send you to
about
the
sea
salt mines. Gentlemen, let's talk about Talk to Her.
Sounds like a good idea.
Overall, this is the first movie of 2002. Is that a weird way to start 02?
We thought it would be a good idea. I don't know if we talked about this in the intro shows, but we thought it would be a good idea to go chronologically this year.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of weird stuff going on this year. We also have 16 movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
nobody knows what to expect.
And yeah, this was
apparently you can just change a podcast. You can just change the way it's done
on the fly. But it could have been Spider-Man, a Spielberg movie. Like
sure.
It could have been Spielberg directs Spider-Man.
It's
a movie that doesn't exist.
It's Almodóvar.
Pedro Almodóvar's Talk to Her. Greg, what is your personal relationship with Pedro Almodóvar before this?
I have heard you say his name to Ryan, and I have heard Ryan say his name to you.
Is this what it's like to be friends with me and Ryan? Wah, Pedro Almodóvar. Wah.
Yeah, you guys talk, and you never listen, which means I think I'm going to be in prime position for this show.
What?
No, it's nothing.
Ryan.
Yes.
What is your relationship to Pedro Almodóvar?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I've seen a lot of the movies, maybe like half. I've seen half of his movies.
If you're a dingus like me, you thought you'd seen a lot, which is 3, and realize he is like 30. This guy's been working forever.
Okay, so I will say, I would say all about your mother, all about my mother in '99 was probably his big blow up. So, and there's a couple movies before that everybody's heard of.
Could you also have called this movie All About My Mother?
A little bit,
Yeah, a lot of his movies, I think, maybe you could have called.
There's 10 movies before that nobody talks about at all.
Okay.
So, it's maybe like the live flesh era is when we start talking about him. And then at a certain point, I think I drafted him in the director's draft. He became like every year that he came out with a movie, it was one to look for. It's going to top 10 lists.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that he is definitely a director to be reckoned with. And I'm going to be honest, I don't envy Greg's position because I do think that Greg is going to I don't want this to come off like I'm a dickhead, but I think he's one of those directors where if Greg were to watch Voltaire in a week,
it helps to get a little bit like the context of him as an artist.
Greg will love Voltaire and also talk to her more.
Yeah.
Yes. Voltaire was my first Almodóvar, and I just went because I loved Penelope Cruz. I think I was like 19 or something when it came out. I went, yes, I'll see anything with her in it. And then went, I like this guy. I don't know what his movies are like. And it is a much easier movie to swallow.
Yeah.
Voltaire also shows you that Penelope Cruz was an international star and then came to America and made trash. And we were like, I guess she's talented. and then you go and watch her other stuff. And no, she's the best in the game.
Yes.
Yeah, it's such a shame when someone comes here just to make the worst movies they're ever going to make.
And then they leave, and then...
Imagine what that must have been like first. Like, I'll go to the land of stupid children, and I'll try to make stupid movies for them, and then they don't even like them.
Oh, you don't like Vicky Cristina Barcelona? I will pack my shit back up and go to Spain.
I do feel very much like scene by scene, I was learning about this guy as a movie maker, and I can't tell how much of that is just because the particular style of this movie, which is very much like I will now lay out one thing, okay, now we'll watch that, now we'll lay out a different scene, and like jumping around in time and keeping you from being able to make coherent connections until near the end. But also, I felt like every scene I was like, okay, so that's how he does some of this stuff. Okay, that was like out of nowhere a very absurdist touch. And then the rest of the movie is kind of not going to interact with that absurdist touch. Okay, that's cool. And so it was an eye-opening experience for sure.
Yeah, but I also... Would you classify this movie as homework, though?
No. I mean, this is
No.
one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had. Like,
It is
enjoyable being a
melodrama.
very plastic experience.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
enjoyable meaning like you are completely invested. I would say within 20 minutes, not even that long, within 10 minutes of watching this movie, I was unable to turn away from it.
Riveting.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and like within 20 minutes, I was like, this is like a shoo-in to win this thing.
Uh-huh.
And then by the end of it, I was like, okay, don't talk about how much this is a shoo-in to win it. Especially if we're going to do 16 movies, by the time we're done with this thing, it'll be a long time since we've seen this
I will
movie.
say I've never heard of that movie and spit in your face for accusing me
But
of
I
hearing of it.
guarantee we spend every week thinking about it.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think you can watch this. First of all, I'm intimidated by this movie. There is so much going on that it's hard to hold it all in your head to form an opinion about it. There's so much doubling, so many callbacks, so many switches in time, so many like areas where the movie doesn't hold your hand. It's clear if you watch it a couple times what's going on, but the movie doesn't make sure you know what's going on.
It doesn't give a shit about you.
And so it's like, I think you live with this movie over time and try to understand it as a function of reflecting on it over years.
But again, like a lot of the time when you're talking about it, and I agree with everything that you said, we can mistake that you're talking about a Tarkovsky movie. And it's so not that. Like, there's so much to deal with, and there's so much that is on his mind and then on the screen. But, God, like, this is just fucking crackerjack. This is it's just like,
This is Cracker
it's
Jack.
so fun. And again, fun, plastic, like, but like,
Yeah.
it's riveting, I guess. From
He
start to
reminds
finish.
me of Kurosawa in that, like, it's like, well, you're still making a film.
Yeah.
Like, you still want people in the theater to be like, kind of like jazzed by what's going on. Or the movie it really made me think of was Mulholland Drive, right?
I thought of Lynch the entire movie,
Yeah.
and there's this combination of like poetry and lyricism, and I'm not sure what this means, but I'll think about it later.
Yeah.
Mixed with this love of like old school, almost corny, like
Yes.
melodrama,
Corny as shit.
and like we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's a dream and what's not.
Right.
And I kept thinking of the Spanish Lynch the entire time.
Yeah.
All right. This has already been an unfortunately great conversation, which is not what the intro
Ending.
is for. We're going to kill this momentum, take a break, and when we come back, really dig in to talk to her. We start the 2002 season with Pedro Almodóvar's Talk to Her, quite possibly the first movie we've had to give a content warning for. If you ignore Come and See, Sallow, and probably a few others I'm forgetting. The film explores the relationship between men and women, performance, truth, and intrinsically connected to it all, rape. Talk to Her follows two men who form an unlikely friendship as they care for women who are both in comas. It would go on to become a critical and commercial success, winning Almodóvar the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, the BAFTA for Best Film Not in English Language, and the Golden Globe for Best Foreign Language Film. And really surprisingly, generally regarded as one of the best films of the 2000s, surprisingly because I now live in 2022, and it feels like the populace would not allow that, which we're going to dig into right now. On Letterboxd, it is filled with dozens of user reviews that gives this movie 1 star, solely because of the aforementioned rape. Roger Ebert ends his review of Talk to Her by saying, "No director since Fassbinder has been able to evoke such complex emotions with such problematic material." Taste buds ask you this: do these letterboxers have a better grasp on the film today than Roger Ebert did 20 years ago? Gregory?
It's hard to say that the rape is very much frowned upon in the movie, right? Like, I mean, and it's very much like men are under the microscope in this movie and found extremely wanting. And so the connection between what Benigno does and like male sexuality writ large, like it's all being condemned in no uncertain terms. Now, it's also a little more complicated than just strictly condemned, I suppose.
Right.
But it basically feels like he is shown to be. I think that it like the complicated nature of this is brought up, but ultimately the verdict is what he did is awful and wrong, and it mirrors awful and wrong things men do every day.
That's the thing, is that I mean, like Benigno stands out as like the main character, or the main character you think about, right? As like, what the fuck is going on with this
Because
movie?
the whole time you're trying to wrap your arms around what is this guy's deal.
When you're not caught up in the soap opera-ness of the movie and the shockingness of the movie, then it allows you to pay attention to different things. And that's why I focused on Marco, who is not the worst person in the movie, right? Obviously, Benigno, he commits rape, and that I think is just sort of there to deal with, and we watch how Marco deals with it. And I think he's the one who, like, obviously Benigno is going to go to prison, and I don't think at any point Almodóvar is saying, like, look, man, rapists are just humans too, and we have to understand them. It's Marco's inability to see Benigno as anybody else. Like his like,
It's my
this
bud.
is my cute buddy.
This is my
Benigno.
bud. Like,
I think that's so much of the issue today
Yeah.
is that all of these rapists, all of these incels have friends that back them up.
it's a conspiracy of men, right? I mean, Benigno calls Marco in. There's like a shot where he's walking by and he's like spying on Alicia's naked, passed out body, comatose body, and he like the way it's shot. Benigno is in the dark and he's out in the light, Marco, and Benigno like gestures, come in. Later, he's on the other side of a door and Benigno again calls him in. So like by being just buddies with this guy, it indicts the whole like conspiratorial nature of men being silent for men supporting men regardless of what they do to women.
And what's the only way to let that happen is to completely silence women.
Right.
And so they can't get away with anything that they do. And this includes Marco, but particularly Benigno. I'm the other guy, unless he's with a woman who has been completely silenced. Like he would be, there would be people talking, but he's like, look, I have complete control of this situation. I finally found a girl that I have complete control of since my mom died, who I practiced on.
Who's probably controlling him.
Come into the room. You totally can because I want you to, and she has no voice.
Yeah, and because I'm not embarrassed to do this in front of you, another man. Like, there's no part of this that embarrasses me in front of you. I'll lie to everybody else, but, like, we are co-conspirators in this. And in the end, Marco is fully his co-conspirator because then he goes on. Like, he can't start a relationship with Alicia that's anything but creepy and weird and manipulative.
I do want to just stop and say, what is this basic plot of this movie? So just in case somebody's listening and has not watched it yet.
There is a woman who, by the time the movie starts, Alicia, who is comatose, and a nurse, Benigno, who takes care of her with a lot of attention. And it's like creepy. He's kind of a creepy figure. And then it slowly becomes revealed that he was like kind of stalking her before he happened to become her nurse. And then it's clear that they have a sexual relationship. Also,
we're led to believe, though, and there's a scene that sort of lays this down, that just by watching him and how not masculine he is, that it's probably okay. And Alicia's father comes in and makes sure that it's okay by saying, you're gay, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, if you're gay, there's no threat. And
yeah, that it would be weird for a straight man to be like administering to her as much, but as long as it's gay, as long as
he's like giving her a upper thigh massage.
Right.
Yeah, and really into it, right? Like part of what is the complex nature of this is he takes exhaustive care of her. And he says, like, you have to treat her like a person, even though nobody treats her like a person, he says, because she's in a coma. I treat her like a person. But he very much also does not treat her like a person. He treats her like a doll or a cipher onto which he can both kind of like idolize her and become her. He very much says, like, I'm living her life.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so
he had no hobbies because his mom was controlling, so he finds out what her hobbies were.
and we don't really know what his mom was like. We don't actually ever see her. Like
No, she dies.
he at one
right?
point says that she wasn't sick or paralyzed.
She was just lazy, and like it's hard to know if that was played as just a joke,
No, 'cause
one liner.
He's a compulsive liar.
Right.
He just
Yes.
lies all the time, and so you don't know what that means. You don't know what his mom's like. You don't know. We're not. Ultimately, there's a lot we don't see. But so that's his whole story. The other story is Marco, a guy who's going out with a lady bullfighter, a lady who fights bulls. And their relationship is complicated. First, he's doing a report on her, and then they become romantically involved, and then they break up for a little bit, and then they get back together again. And then they have this big emotional talk about what the future of their relationship is going to be right before she gets gored by a bull and then is herself in a coma. And then these two men meet up again, and the story is like them each taking care of these ladies who are in comas. And then eventually it comes out that it's so complicated that Benigno is having a sexual relationship with Alicia, the woman that he's taking care of, and having a sexual relationship. He's raping her.
Yeah.
The way he sees it is like they're like a couple because
He definitely thinks that.
He's like, well, he's made up a whole relationship for them because in the relationship, it's this what Marco says. It's a monologue. He's just talking at her, and then eventually he goes to prison, and then eventually kills himself. And then Marco and Alicia meet later in life. Alicia like wakes up, which is a miracle. It's not supposed to happen. And then Marco obviously like has eyes for her, and he kind of has. There's been this transition where he realizes that his girlfriend Lydia was seeing another guy.
Well, she was going to leave him, and then she got knocked into a coma.
Yeah.
For her original...
And she tried to tell him, and he would not listen to her.
Because he was monologuing.
Which is so crazy that, like, I remember the first time I watched this, I thought... Because it's like her manager or something that comes in and says... Marco comes in, and he's there and says...
No, it's El Nino, right? It's her bullfighting boyfriend that they talk about.
Okay, so another matador.
Yeah.
Who's around, but, like, you know... him and Marco become at least acquaintances, and then he walks in, and El Nino's holding her hand or whatever at the bedside and said, "Oh, fuck. Just so you know, she was about to break up with you."
Right.
And the first time I watched this years ago, I was like, he's lying. He's a masculine idiot, and he probably is totally lying
But
about
if you
this.
watch that scene...
But watching it now, I'm like, no, I'm not. Or no, he's not lying because that guy, El Nino, is like a man. Like, there's no fluidity like Pedro loves to do as far as like what women and men mean. This is a man, and the last scene that we see before she is gored is him following the advice of Benigno and talking to her and saying, but only talking and not
she calls
listening.
him out for that.
And completely like rewriting her emotional state. He's like, I know why you're crying. It's this. I mean, he's very much doing what Benigno does all the time with Alicia, which is I'm deciding what your actions mean.
Right. And so, do you not like this? Well, maybe being in a coma would make you a better girlfriend for me. Like that's sort of what he's saying is that why can't you just listen to me all the time?
We'll get to Benigno and Marco and how they play off of each other later. For tying this all back to the letterboxers, and I think this is the old man in me saying, the letterbox kids, right? Like, it is because they're not both like Hellraiser tortured, is that people are giving, or that rape happens at all, and I want to be able to forget that.
I think it's because you can make a weird argument where you're like, isn't Benigno giving her a lot of care? And doesn't he, like, when he sees Lydia later, doesn't he treat Lydia with more humanity than anybody else is treating her?
Yes. I think that the movie is sort of some of the false notes of the movie, and maybe this is because we know we're watching a movie, and it does have that like those Lynchian and Almodovarian qualities, is that something is up with Benigno. We know that. Like when he's doing her hair with another nurse, and she's like, this would be a lot easier if we just chop her hair off. And he's like, no, it must be the same length that she came in with. So when she wakes up, she like, I don't know if that's textbook nursing for a coma patient. There is something up with him. And I think a lot of what the movie is doing, what it's saying is not that rapists are people too. They're like defending rapists, but instead saying like the people that are around you could be this as well.
Right.
Like just because rapists don't all come in masks and with like black masks with bags
huge
with
muscles,
a dollar sign on it. Yeah, like it could be anybody around you, and it shows that there's a not board meeting, but like a a meeting where they're trying to figure out, why is Alicia pregnant?
Yeah.
And all signs point to Benigno.
It's weird how everybody in that room is purposely not looking at
Yeah,
him.
right.
In that scene.
How could this be? What
Rosa
happened
full on
here?
is just like, oh shit. Because there's another nurse who constantly leaves at night because she's taking care of a sick relative. And he's like, don't worry, I know I've been here 12 hours. I'll do the nights
I'll
too.
just
do the
hang
nights
out all
too."
here.
And
You should ask questions if
now-
someone says that.
Now that Alicia's pregnant, a year later, they're like, oh, he was too nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
so-
mean, ultimately, what's being critiqued is not his relationship with her, but all like male patriarchal. Like this is how men enter into relationships with women every day, right? Where they only see their side of it. They only care about their half of the conversation.
This is one of the few movies where women aren't allowed to talk, because I could see that definitely being like, the woke critique of it. But it's like, well, that is Almodóvar's fucking point.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, up to this point, at least in the movies that I've seen before this, very, very woman focused. Like,
oh, yeah.
If guys were in the movie, they were very much two-dimensional characters, and so that's part of what makes you sort of consider a little bit more what he's trying to do here, because it's definitely not saying rape.
Right. It's not that you have to see so many of his movies to get this one, but that it is in conversation with the normal stories he does tell, so it can inform that. But I also think if you've never seen this movie and watched this, at no point does it seem like he's like, rapists. I mean, everybody's got to be somebody. Like,
but like, I do think he's saying, I have this idea, right? Two people who bond over their significant others, quote unquote, in a coma, right? That seems like a starting point for a script, especially foreign movie, maybe not in America, but and then these are the two dudes that he thought of, and he is one to not pick, like the normal situations that other screenwriters would pick of, like, well, this one is, let's say this one's black and this one's white, and that's where all the drama will come.
Right.
He went there with this, and then and like he wanted to see how it would play out, and I think he does that in an extremely like interesting way. In the meantime, we've learned over the last 20 years that in most cases, if Benigni were to do this, he would not go to jail. So I think Pedro takes another step of actually putting him in a prison cell.
And I do think there's probably their complaints have to do with the fact that and this probably is not valid, or it's not valid, but the universe of the story doesn't punish him, really.
Right.
He goes to like the softest prison in the world.
They're not even allowed to be called inmates.
Yeah, they're not even called inmates. They're called interns. And it's like, on top of being like cushy and new, it's empty. And so there's hardly anybody else there.
Right.
It, like, we see a shot of like a guard dialing the phone for him, like on his behalf to make a call out to his buddy to ask him to come visit.
My fear of jail is not being in jail. That sounds great and like a vacation. It's the other inmates that leads to my fear of jail.
And yet it's very much like a white collar
even his
prison.
reputation is protected because Marco knows, and Benino's landlady is like, what happened to him? And he's like, it's not my place
He's
to
innocent.
tell.
Yeah, but innocent
And
of what?
Yeah, he's like, who knows?
Yeah. And so there's like all of the movie is pointing a spotlight at all of that. That's the point of the movie. And so, I think ultimately, to answer your question, Mike, I think it's people misinterpreting the movie, because the movie is pointing big red arrows at a whole bunch of problematic behavior, and it's not endorsing any of it in the slightest.
That, and like, and I'm not talking shit on this generation, but I think that it's awesome how quick everyone is to throw red flags on everything and not be accepting of all the stuff that we used to be. But sometimes to slam the door on this movie simply because the rapist is not tortured immediately, I think that you're sort of missing Almodóvar's point. And if you watch it again, then I think you'll see more of where he's coming from.
Yeah, I would love to know if people think we're just like old fucks who don't get what their arguments are.
I mean, we are.
Tweet at us, kids.
Take us on.
That's not condescending, is it?
We are trying to guess what they're upset about, right?
Yeah.
So we don't ultimately know. It's
but
an extremely uncomfortable
to say one
movie.
star, that's unbelievable. It looks gorgeous. Like, Almodóvar knows how to aim cameras.
And like, I'm way more disturbed by 3 Days of the Condor, which like ultimately goes like, but
that
that's
does celebrate it.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of like, well,
romance.
Slightly coercive sex is kind of the heart of romance, and and I feel like at the end of it, it's like it's a little bit of a shrug to like, she sort of says a couple times that you raped her, but she probably doesn't mean that, and it's like, no, I'm uncomfortable. Where did we fall on this? This movie though, It doesn't do that. Like there's no world in which any of this behavior is called okay or countenance in the least.
And I can see the director of 3 Days watching that now and be like, "Oh, okay, I see what you're saying." I can see Almodóvar watching this today and be like, "Yeah, that's what I was saying."
Yeah,
today
for
in
sure.
2022.
Yeah.
All right, there is so much to talk about this movie, so of course we're going to take a break and get to A Little Mountain.
Mount Rushmore.
You know what that means because they straight up said it. It's time for Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore.
We build
Mount Rushmore.
the mountain. You know what? Both of you?
Right.
Flawless. Flawless impressions of our tour guide. We build a mountain to our own thing. We are starting off 2002 with the Mount Rushmore of TV.
TV.
It's our favorite
TV.
thing.
We did it.
God, just talking about Talk to Her, which is a movie for like that 10 minutes. Where was the TV talk in that whole thing?
TV's easy. You can kick back. You can throw popcorn at it. You can talk over. You can watch your phone.
I'll second screen it. Yeah, I'll watch a second TV show while I'm watching a TV show.
2 TV shows.
TV is meant to be watched while doing something else.
Only like bad TV though, right?
Could you
Like,
imagine watching this movie and doing something, even without the language thing? Could you imagine being like, I'm just going to throw this on while I play some computer basketball?
I rewound so many times because I realized I was like taking notes and I'd be like, well, Twitter's next to my notes. And then I was like, oh, Mike, you can barely speak Spanish. You cannot have a left ear on this. You should probably pay attention.
I think one of them just said then. I think I heard then somewhere in that sentence.
Definitely. Oh, boy. Somebody's name is the boy.
2002 TV, Mike, to answer the question that you undoubtedly were about to just throw to me. This comes from a time where you just, what do the networks have on? That's what you were going to go.
There was no
check
streaming.
out.
Weird.
No streaming. You just had to sit down with your tube television, probably wearing your tube top.
You could be flipping through a literal tiny magazine to find out what's on TV that day.
And a lot of shows just got started around this time, and they were trying in a post 9/11 world to make entertainment work, and it was very difficult.
Just for the record, I was streaming fucking every single song in the world on my Napster account, bitch.
Boom.
Oh, I don't need to make it if drop that. Well, as always, there is a couple special ones that might get you more points or less points.
Oh.
What about that? There's toxic picks. So let's start this off right. Greg,
Yes.
give me your first.
2002 was the first season of The Wire. I know I said all we had was broadcast television, but we also had something that was not television.
This isn't the Rushmore of not TV.
It was HBO.
The home box office?
The Wire. This was finally somebody being like, okay, bear with us here. What if TV wasn't so awful? What if like we actually cared? What if we told a big story? What if the characters were complicated? And I don't know if you know this, Mike, but apparently being a drug cop in Baltimore, it gets complicated. It's, you know? It's complicated.
It does. And my quick fingers might have hinted at what I was about to say. The Wire, right on that mountain.
That means you don't even have to pick a character. It's
Yeah.
all 75 characters from The Wire.
Oh, right, because we have to pick a character here.
Right.
Greg.
You need a representative
Oh.
head.
Omar, of course.
Yeah, there's got to. Even though he's not the biggest part of season one,
No.
it's clear
He stands for
Omar's
the
gonna
entire
stand in. Yeah,
show.
Omar's coming. Farmer in the Dell himself. Ryan.
Man, that makes him sound so much less tough than he actually was.
But it's terrifying.
Yeah. Mike, let me take you back to a time where we're just watching TV, hanging out with friends, maybe smoking some weed,
What?
maybe cleaning out an entire jug of cheese balls in one night. And it's hard.
That's what happens after you clean out that jug.
You shit in it.
You shit everywhere inside
Quick,
that
eat
jug.
these cheese balls. I need a toilet.
Shit.
It's hard to explain to people this day and age what a phenomenon one Joseph Millionaire was to the entire world. Mike, this was a hillbilly plumber, I want to say.
Yeah.
And they told 16 gold diggers that he was worth $1 single $1 million.
Which, okay, if somebody's a plumber, if a guy, this is
They
like a
might be.
24-year-old guy, right? So he's a 24-year-old plumber. Dude, stick it out. Like, plumbers make
Yeah.
good money. If you wait a few years, this guy might have a ton of scratch.
Part of that, like Mike Rowe didn't teach us the beauty of dirty jobs yet in 2002.
No.
So part of the thing was they did not know he was a plumber. They thought he was a like dilettante. right?
They thought he was a $1 millionaire. No, they like this guy has $1 million. If he spent $1 on something, he no longer qualifies.
It had to be Joe Billionaire in 2022, correct?
And this was back in the day where at least I watched reality shows and it felt like they were talked about in my bubble. And especially pre like social media where it was, you had to like actually go out, fucking hit the pavement, nose to the grindstone in order to get some reality
local
TV
water
talk.
cooler. Keeping up tradition. Both of your first picks are on here.
It's hard, right?
It's hard not to because you just get so excited.
Yeah.
Remember when? Nostalgia.
Also, like that's a very 2002 one. Some of these are like, Wire went on for like 6 years or whatever. But like Joe Millionaire, that's 2002.
It came and went that year.
Yeah, dude. Like the third highest rated show of 2002. And then by the time they got to the end of it, everybody felt bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they were like, we shouldn't do this. And then they did it a couple more times.
And yeah, you had all these girls who were excited to meet a rich person.
Right.
That's what they were. But the way that we were supposed to read them, it was as filthy fucking gold-digging whores.
Yeah. And you know what? A lot of these women, they were not accustomed to having men lie to them.
Mm.
And so this was the first time.
Men
for
had
that.
never lied to women before
Yeah.
2002.
You know what I just say? Talk to her. Don't lie to her. Just talk to her.
You're a creep. Greg, what's up?
All right. Let's see. 2002, reality TV was big, and nothing was bigger than multiple nights of American Idol. A show that was so big that they would put it on like 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
And it's all we cared about. And we all agreed on one thing. Whoever wins this show, from now on, that person is famous forever.
That worked once.
And
this was the year.
Kelly Clarkson, right? Was
Yes.
from this year, and she's still basically around. Man, sometimes they'll just put a random person up on TV and they'll be like, winner of 2012's American Idol. And you're like, what?
No.
Who is that person?
No, it's not. This should be like an every 5-year show if you're going to make us care about the people.
Yeah.
Or
for sure.
every 8 years. Like, do it every season to have one person come back for the 8. After 8 years, you have the 8
Defend
winners.
your title.
Yeah, and then that person will be famous.
Who's the true idol?
Yeah.
I like that.
Or do it once every 4 years, like with elections.
Mhm.
And then to kind of piggyback off that
And
moment.
then
even
have
though
like an
we'll
American
vote, but-
Idol Senate and American Idol
Yes.
House.
And the other idols get to actually pick the real idol who comes later, and it's very Byzantine, and the rules are complicated, and it's not a democracy. That was one of my special picks. It had to be there.
It makes sense for them to base it after politicians, because every time I hear a politician talk, it's like they're just saying idol. Like they're boring.
Ryan.
Oh, I
You
did not
did
see
not
that
know.
coming.
That was
some
a
facial
twist.
play. You could
That
not see
was
how
a
it was going.
twist.
But if anybody who's listened to the show for a while knows, I might be the reason Ryan's still the way he is, because I eat that shit up. All right, Ryan. Also, tradition dictates. Let me know who's going to be on the maybe pile right now.
This is bullshit. But 2002 was, believe it or not, the only year that Friends was the #1 show. It went on for like 11 seasons, but it was always like 4, 5, 6.
That's shocking.
This was the only year it was #1, and so I have to nominate our boy, the true weakest man in entertainment, David Schwimmer.
David
as Ross
Schwimmer.
Geller should be on this mountain.
Greenzo in.
Is this the only group of people that, when you think Friends, it's of course David Schwimmer's face is who's on the mountain?
Yeah, absolutely.
We are Schwimmer guys.
We pivot. We go swimming all the time.
We could pivot to somebody else, but I would not be okay with that.
Well, Friends is on the maybe pile. Greg?
All right, 2002. I know what you're thinking, Mike. I want only the biggest, best shows. But you know what? Some of those shows existed before and after 2002. But you know what didn't? Clone High. Clone High was on MTV. It was Lord and Miller, and it started our tumultuous relationship with them. And honestly, this is the first thing we ever watched that starred Gandhi, and we just watched the Gandhi movie.
We
I
did.
I think about Clone High all the time. It was hilarious. You could not do it now, especially because a lot of it was actually kind of racist.
Was it?
I don't know.
I don't really remember Clone High. I remember going, I like it.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It was a good show, and it was funny.
Well, Clone High, Greg.
Was Clone High the oblongs?
I was going to... The fucking oblongs
Oh
was
my
Clone
god,
High.
the oblong.
I don't think I had cable yet, so it really was.
Wait, was Clone High Squidbillies? Am I thinking of that right?
You are. Yes, it was Squidbilly oblongs, and it's on the maybe pile.
Clone
Ryan?
High was Gandhi, Joan of Arc, and Abraham Lincoln hanging out, going to high school, trying to deal with their changing bodies and the fact they were all clones of major historical figures.
Did you guys know that Tegan and Sarah's biography of their youth is a TV show now?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
It's called High School.
It is called High School, not Clone High.
It's not called Clone High School.
It's called the Oblong Squidbillies.
Even though they are clones of each other. That's what twins are.
It's so weird.
I have a favorite show that I talk about a lot. We talk about a lot. The three of us text about it a lot more than people would think.
Will and Grace. Sorry, Ryan.
Mike, I don't know if you actually do. I think that you might, just in the three of our text feed, it's me and Greg constantly.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to nominate the titular character for this very popular show. I'm going to nominate Eddie the dog.
Yeah.
Who really stole the show week in, week out. That motherfucker.
That's just, I love Eddie the dog. I wanted a Jack Russell for so long because of Eddie the dog.
That motherfucker stole every scene. He hated Frasier.
Mm-hmm.
He loved Frasier's dad, John Mahoney.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's other characters than Eddie the dog from the
No.
show whose title I cannot even remember.
How about the brother Niles, dude? I love Niles.
so
I was a
Niles,
Niles guy.
Yeah,
Daphne?
you were a Niles head?
Yeah, Daphne's good. Roz, dude. Roz for days.
Roz is fine.
Yeah, dude.
The tossed salad and the scrambled eggs?
Oh, that's what we should have done. Two-headed mountain. Tossed salad and scrambled eggs.
And then every once in a while they'd bring back, what's his wife's name?
Maris?
No,
No,
that's
that's
Niles'
Niles'
wife.
wife.
Maris the heiress.
Never shown, Maris.
BB Newirth, who obviously played.
That's not Ross?
Lilith?
Lilith.
Lilith. And this was the one where they were like, okay, remember how, like, on 1 or 2 Cheers, Lilith was hot?
Mm-hmm.
She was hot so much on Frasier. They really let her shine.
I was always weird, though, because they made her so pale. Every time she came on, I was like, damn, Lilith fair.
Pat said no. We can't do it every time. It's time for speed round. What do we got, Greg?
Survivor, like it was really popping off.
Jonathan
in
Survivor?
2002. It had maybe never been. It would been never probably bigger than 2002.
Ryan?
We have to. Every chance that we get in this era, we have to give out a big old Deborah.
Yeah, dude, I've been waiting for this.
Greg?
Firefly. You can't take the sky from me. You just can't do it.
That is a good song.
Firefly
That is
was,
a terrible song.
Firefly was the first show ever that was like, learn to speak Chinese, y'all.
Yeah. They got it. They got it early. Ryan?
I'm gonna. I mean, like we have to. I guess we don't have to, but I'm going to talk about William Peterson, the main character, the first guy who ever went after a Hannibal Lecter character in a movie, star of the movie Manhunter, and was also the star of CSI. And it's crazy how big that that show was number 1, and number 2 was like half its ratings. Everyone could not get enough of CSI.
It just owns the whole 21st
And then
century, though.
This is back when
unfortunately.
it was like, here's one show, and then they clearly did the Simpsons joke where they're like,
Yeah.
we need 20 more shows. Okay, CSI, another city.
I mean, everybody said this, but like I've listened to countless podcasts about how it changed the legal world and
Right.
how lawyers can't get people busted because they're like, oh, we don't have CSI evidence, therefore we have to make this
And
guy.
Its
Only
rating
the
was
last-
16.3. The next highest is Friends at 13.9.
That's crazy.
And then there's a bunch that are like kind of around that level. But yeah, it was like doing like numbers that nothing else was.
And only in the last year or two are people like, actually, a lot of CSI evidence is horse shit.
Yeah.
And we
Dude.
should not rely
no,
so
like
heavily
it
on
doesn't work.
Apparently, you're not supposed to just watch 8 years of Law and Order and then go, I understand how the criminal justice system works. There's 2 parts, dude.
I know law and order.
Gentlemen, your 2002 Mount Rushmore of television is The Wire, Joe Millionaire, American Idol, and the other special one that was picked because Mike loves the heaviest garbage. It is Deborah is on that mountain. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to her.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening so far. And let me just tell you that everything ahead of this commercial is much better than what came before it. That's my guarantee. While I have you here, let me tell you about a website. It's called yourpopfilter.com. And it's everything you need that's related to Pop Filter. Everything Mike, everything Ryan, everything Greg, everything Cassie, everything is there at yourpopfilter.com. While you're there, go to yourpopfilter.com/Amazon. Make that your new Amazon bookmark and do your shopping from there. That way, we get a little piece of the action and Amazon doesn't. Make sure you're also listening to everything that Pop Filter has to offer, which includes the Superhero Show, a podcast that covers every single TV show that's based on a comic book or comic book property, and Movie of the Year, where we sit down and try and figure out what is the single greatest movie of any given year. That's Superhero Show. That's Movie of the Year. And that's yourpopfilter.com. Rate, subscribe, review. Bye.
Marco and Benigno have a lot of similarities, rape aside. But how are they different? What is Almodóvar trying to say by giving us these two specific gentlemen opposed to two others? And what is this movie ultimately saying men want from women or from each other?
If I may, do something a little bit cliche and talk about how the first 30 seconds of this movie is the movie in a nutshell. And I actually don't mean the play that we're watching because that might be the first couple of minutes. But it's us sort of realizing that we're watching the two main characters, even if they don't realize it. They're sitting next to each other watching a play.
They look like a couple.
Yeah.
It's us watching Benigno watch Marco cry.
Right.
And we do not know that they don't know each other yet.
Yeah, it very much seems like they are dating and that they are on a date together.
And not only does it seem like they're on a date together, it seems like that Benigno's face is Marco's crying at this pretty obtuse performance art piece, and Marco's openly crying, and Benigno's like, what the? His face is like, what the fuck is this guy crying about?
But I think that's part of it, but I also think that
Mike.
no, I'm glad that I set you up for that point. You needed it. I think that there's a lot of it, too, that we're going to grow to learn that Marco is an incredibly emotional person. And that's where some of the, as far as Pedro is concerned, gender fluidity comes in, because in movies, women do these things that Marco and Benigni are going to do. But Benigno is going to watch Marco, and I think what we're seeing here is we're seeing a man capable of crying, which is rare, which is not something that we see in American movies.
Right.
And then we see a person like Benigno, very involved in the play, and then looking over at Marco and feeling those emotions, but not knowing how to express it. And I think right there we get how Marco is a very emotional person, and Benigno is sort of almost like admiring his ability to let it actually come out.
It's admiring. I think it is confusion. It feels like a dog trying to understand the internet.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. I think he doesn't understand it. I think he's recording it. Like, he's taking note of it because he's later...
He's a sociopath.
...going to say it to Alicia. Yeah, but, like, when he sees human emotion, he only sees, like, how can I use this in the future? He doesn't, like... I don't think he connects with it in any way because I don't think he understands it in any way.
I mean, you can see the head tilt, right? And, like, sort of just watch it. But, I mean, I do think that, like...
And he's like, Alicia is going to love this.
Right.
Like, he's
there because she was into this shit.
Yeah, he's there as her.
Yeah.
Like, he's there... like
to go tell her the story.
Yeah.
But it's not just be like... None of this movie, believe it or not, is about how important it is to talk to coma patients while they're in a coma.
No, that's the
like
most insane part of it.
You think so much that, like, talk to her. Okay, these two guys know someone in a coma. It's important to talk to these people because some science says that is important. None of it is about that. It's about finding this perfect partner that will never interrupt you.
Benigno's in jail, and then she wakes up. If anything, his constantly like talking to her is not helping her come
kept
back.
her trapped.
It's once that they are apart that she comes all the way back.
The telenovela part of this movie made me keep thinking, like, oh, she's faking it. She like, he walks in
she's
and she
like
closes
Buster.
her eyes real quick. But yeah, like, he is taking in all of the stuff that he sees from the movie, or from the play rather, and then all of the stuff that he sees from Marco in the same way. I'm learning from this and I'm learning from this at the same time because it's all on a stage to me. It's all equal.
It's all the same. And that's, I think, why it's these two are specific, because this is kind of Benigno's story, right? How a sociopath learns to navigate. But Marco is important versus El Nino. El Nino would not be crying.
Right.
Because Marco is a man in touch with his emotions, and so that makes Benigno learn more than if it was like a dude's dude, and makes the audience more on Marco's side right away. And it takes a while before you go, oh, yeah, nice guys are pieces of shit, too.
Yeah, I think this is a really early entry in the nice guys are pieces of shit canon.
And I think that's where his country of origin comes in. Right. I think that the fact that he is called an Argentinian sometimes, that's sort of like the stink that they're putting on it, is that a Spaniard would never do this shit.
Because, like, historically, Spanish have done some gnarly stuff. You know, like, we talk about, like, America's crimes, but, like, Spain was colonialist. Spain was fascist from, like, 1920 to 1970.
Yeah, they got in early.
Yeah, and, like, when they decided that, like, they didn't want to be fascist anymore, they also decided, like, and we're also not allowed to talk about it. Nobody can bring it up. We all have to just forget that it happened, which is super creepy. Like, and so there's all these pressures, and I think in a way he's saying, like, Spain is super messed up. If you're from Argentina, you're going to be a little less messed up because like you aren't like in this stew here.
Yeah, I don't think that Pedro's saying like only girly men come from Argentina, but yeah, I do think that like he's saying that Argentinians are at least more in touch with their emotions and able to do this. But I think some of the Spanish characters in here look at him weird. Like,
aren't they like kind of almost all portrayed as being like vicious and crude and like extreme
The
and
Spaniards?
like yeah, they're all so rude to each other. Like anytime I would try to figure out anytime any two women are talking to each other and there's no men around or only Benigno around, they're very crude with each other. Like the assistant being like, "I just took a huge elephant-sized dump."
that doctor's assistant, like
talking.
That is the quote of the movie.
The
for
two
me.
women talking about whether Marco has a big dick.
how
Yeah.
hung
or
Marco
not.
is.
Like, but then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, kind of all of these people are like just so rude and gross with each other all the time.
That's interesting. I thought he was showing the women like that, and it feels like progressive in 2002 to be like, women also talk like
I think it's
humans.
it's the
like,
gender fluidity in that you have these women talking about their fucking dumps.
I thought only
Yeah.
we talked about our elephant-sized dumps.
and that men don't want that. Men want the cipher, the empty woman.
Yeah.
right, or like talk like treating men's bodies like pieces of meat, or just talking about their physical body parts. Like that's women don't do that, and that's just Pedro again playing with everything. The Spaniards to me in this movie, it came off as, and you see this with some American filmmakers, as just aloof, as just like we're not paying attention to anything, and that's how you let somebody like Benigno get by.
Because culturally, that's what they have been like. In 2002, they have been spending 50 years trying to forget all the terrible things they did. And I just read this article recently about for a whole period they were taking Spanish babies away from their moms if their moms were like too leftist and not fascist enough, and then giving them to fascist families. And there's a whole generation that don't realize they were like stolen and not part. And so I wonder if he's really looking at Spain and saying like, if we can't look at the bad things we're doing, if we can't look at our twisted history, we have no chance in the present and no chance in the future because we're like still acting like cavemen, you know? And so as much as it's gendered, it also seems like it goes outside to another layer, which is that like for instance, that meeting, the board meeting they have about like, hey, one of our patients is pregnant. It doesn't seem caring. It doesn't it
feels very much like who's going to get in trouble.
Who's going to get, and like,
And
not
like who's gonna put like our number one thing is to not get sued.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
and at one point he looks up and he's like, we're going to tell her dad that this R word has been like solely in charge of her. And it's like, you're so crass and awful with everything you say, with every interaction. And yet they're also at the same time all trying not to look at what's really happening.
Right.
Like they're all still in that moment. If they could bury their heads in the sand, they would. But they sort of know that they have to be like, okay, obviously Benigno did this.
And that's kind of a timeless message that could definitely be talked about now. But it's like ostrigine is better than not, because then there's some amount of culpability or responsibility you're going to have to take. You know, like all of those people on that floor let him continue to work despite all of the signs that we as an audience were constantly watching.
Including one of the nurses who obviously
Like,
is
no.
very skeeved out by him. And that's why she's so rude to him all the time.
Right.
Like that one in particular, I think she's rude because she actually says like so, but that just makes her more culpable because she knows on some level what's happening. They all know, and they all just choose not to know.
There's so much of it is avoiding social awkwardness. So you can be rude to somebody and it won't make things that awkward necessarily. But if you call somebody out on the thing that is true and you're pretty sure is true, that'll make it awkward. And that is everybody's always doing the tap dance of like, and that's why El Nino it's so shocking that he's like, hey man, she was going to leave you for me. Because he's the first person who's like, I'm going to cut through like the niceties and the dancing back and forth and talking through the side of my mouth.
The first time I watched that, I thought, that's too expository. But the second time I watched it, I was like, this seems real. He's just like, here's the whole deal. Because Marco walks in, and this guy is like holding her hand. Saying,
I don't want to beat around the bush. Like, let's just knock this out.
He's just like, and like maybe that's the way in which he's shown as so manly, is he's just like, I can't dissemble in the least. I just have to tell you exactly what's going on. And it's honestly, the second time I watched it, maybe the most refreshing scene in the entire movie.
I mean, like I was talking about the first time I watched it, I was like, this bastard is lying.
Yeah.
And there's nothing bastardly at all. He was like, man, I'm just going to fucking rip the Band-Aid off real quick. And
she
then
was
we can
supposed
move
to
on.
tell you, and I could tell looking at you that you hadn't been told, and I
And I
wasn't
know
sure
you're
what
going to
to
cry
do.
because you're an Argentinian.
And I had to, like, and if you remember, he says, I have to actually leave for a few months. So he had to go.
Yeah.
And then he's just come back. And as soon as he comes back, he basically says, this is exactly what's going on. That's the only straightforward thing to ever happen in this movie.
And it's almost good because normally, somebody cheating, it would be bad. But he's like, look, I can't let you keep visiting this gal in a coma believing a thing that is not true.
Yeah.
Like, I need to let you be free.
No. The bastard is the decent one.
Yes.
And I have to be here.
Right.
Like, this
also
is
fuck off.
Yeah, like I have to watch. I have to stand this vigil, and not because I want to. I got this sense, anyways. Not because I want to have a one-sided conversation with her, but because I owe this debt to her by loving her.
Yeah.
Was he a good guy? Was that like the one?
I think he was
He
the
might
one.
be the one.
yeah.
Good
Wow,
guy.
there was actually one.
It should have been called Talk to Him. And it was about this one time one guy talked to this other guy.
You know why I was still suspect of him? Because
Right.
he's named El Nino,
Uh-huh.
and so
Yeah.
much of this is about that. I felt a very heavy Itu Mama Tambien vibe here, where it's
Right.
like I have to be not just your lover, I also have to be your mom.
your little
I have to
boy.
replace her. Yeah, you want to crawl back inside me. You want to you want to enter me so fully you become me and consume me.
And that's definitely an Almodovarian trait that pops up in a few of his movies.
Yeah. I thought that was one of the most true, interesting moments because I don't think he's talking about the becoming the women. I don't think he's talking about trans identity there. I think he's talking about a very real male, cishet desire to not just control, not just have a woman, but
Like what I like. I'm going to inform all of your
yeah,
opinions now.
I want the line between us to disappear, and I want to be the same being.
I want it to be like the end of, I think, the first Men in Black, where you open up the head and there's that little guy inside
Yeah.
controlling. I want to be that little guy too. I want to control my own life, but also be the little guy in your life.
Yes.
One thing I want to point out that I love about this movie is with the two of them, Marco and Benino, is there is a clear montage. It's very clear to all people watching, even for the first time, of how interconnected these two are. But where it goes after watching it is to crazy points, and that is how the first thing that these two gentlemen have in common, besides going to the play together, which they don't even know each other at that point, is the changing of the clothes. Like, we are going to completely undress and dress these people that we're in love with. And it sort of just seems like their job. That's
Right.
what I love about it, is that it's very matter of fact.
clinical.
And it's like, I'm going to help you because you're in a coma and you need some help. Get out of your dirty clothes and into your new clothes. And I'm going to, wash you and everything. While Marco is there or actually helping undress and then dress
Lydia.
As the
Lydia
bullfighter.
as the
Yeah.
bullfighter in all of that intricate gear.
Ryan.
And we just think that they're just there to help, or they're just there, that's sort of what their role is in this point. But as the movie goes on, reflecting back on that scene, you realize how much more that had to say about how manipulative, and because Benino did not have dreams of being a nurse until he found out that Alicia was in a coma. Didn't know how to do makeup. This was all just to be close to her.
Right.
Whereas Marco was really only truly comfortable while being Lydia, who is a fairly masculine looking woman
talk about
Oh,
the
yeah.
fluidity.
in a
yeah.
very masculine job, while he's there being the one to take the button hook, and that's all very slowly done, and it seems so innocuous. It seems so like I'm just there to help, and then so much more is revealed.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They have basically an inverted relationship in a lot of ways, except for the snake.
Right.
And it's that she has a phobia of snakes to the extreme. Now I see it's an Almodóvar type thing, but to the extreme of she's like, I'm never going back. To
yeah,
that
I'm gonna
Right.
sell
I
that
will
house.
burn that house down.
But that's really the only time in which you see them, except for maybe the conversation where he won't listen to her,
Uh-huh.
where they occupy the
Traditional,
more
quote,
standard,
unquote, yeah.
traditional roles with each other.
And that's funny because that's where they both kind of fall for each other, is when they fill those traditional roles.
Yeah.
And then it is inevitably that traditional stance of his that seems to push her away because we don't get a lot of them actually together.
No, yeah, and it's he later says it's my fault this happened, and you get the sense that first of all that's very masculinist. It must have been something I did.
Right.
It's dude, they opened the gate up and the bull came right out and got her. It was not even that was just, and I'm sure that's how it happens sometimes because the idea is you tire the bull out. So if the bull just throws itself at you right away, I'm sure it could happen. But
Right.
like on some level, he's like, that's my fault because I didn't listen to her. I wasn't there for her in that moment.
But yeah, you cycle through your brain saying, what is the last thing that happened where I can blame myself
Yeah.
and rationalize it in
Because
my
that
head.
makes it easier because it gives you some sort of control.
And it's funny, El Nino's like, actually, it's my fault.
Yeah.
And he's thinking it's because she had that terrible thing she had to tell you and she didn't get a chance to.
Look, it's everybody's fault but the Bulls.
But the Bulls.
It's not the Bulls'
The
fault. at all.
Bulls.
Doubles.
We are going to take the quickest of breaks, and when we come back, do one of my favorite segments and try to get some money for this show.
Well, that is very, very funny. Or very sad. And perhaps now you have something to think about. Or very problematic, and perhaps we have something to think about. But in any event, I'm sure you have some reaction to what you're listening to. So why not check us out on the social media? You can go to Instagram or Twitter and find us at YourPopFilter. Email contacts@YourPopFilter. Hey, everybody. Keep watching them movies.
Gentlemen, we are in search of sponsors of the TV show, so we have used our time machine, and we will be watching commercials from said future sponsors from the past to see if we want them to sponsor us
So clear.
now in the future.
Yeah.
No mattress commercials from 2002. Like, that's not our kind of podcast. We don't do mattresses.
I don't think mattresses
My prices
existed
are
in
so
02.
low, you'll think I'm going through something.
Or your mattresses.
Man, on some mattress commercials locally, I have like watched like a man become a family, become grown-up kids. Like I've watched a whole
A whole
generation
mattress
has gone
dynasty.
by.
Is that one of your reality shows, Mike? Mattress Dynasty?
I would watch the shit out of Mattress Dynasty. They're selling you their mattress while they're on their back on theirs.
Enjoy your sleep, because they're not gonna be.
All right, so let's dive in. We've all done this 8 years ago. It's been a minute since we've done future sponsors.
You just put them on. Is this for The Gap?
So we have the Pink Panther soundtrack, which is O2 all the way.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, I see some Heinekens. When I
It's
in
the mini keg.
2002, I thought Heineken was like a good beer.
It's the fancy beer, yes?
Now if someone like tried to hand me a
The
Heineken,
poachers. These are two guys shopping together. They just stole somebody else's 12-pack of Heine.
but they're still gonna pay for it.
I used to love Heinekens back in the day because people would be like, who can open this Heineken?
When you're busy
And I would say
dealing
this
with groceries,
Heineken,
eat.
and I would crack it open with my
With
butthole.
your butt.
Yeah.
that's
Wow.
pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
This is not one of our
Now this
ads.
is an actual ad,
Miss a few things.
but
See,
it's not one of the
noticed
ads
that,
we'll be
didn't
talking
you?
about.
No.
With Walmart Plus and home,
But people
an
are just
associate
opening
delivers
fridges
and
and
puts
looking at
away your
fridges and
groceries,
playing
whether
fridges.
you
Man,
or
I
not.
can't wait till somebody from Walmart comes
No
into my
tips, no
house
markups,
and
no
touches
worries.
my fridge. That'll be so
All right,
nice.
here's one of our sponsors.
I'm going to say no to Heineken, by the way.
yeah,
They're out.
kids are at a crosswalk with their mother.
It looks gritty.
There's
Oh.
a Yoshi.
There's a Yoshi. Oh man, there's Yoshi. Everybody.
Yoshi's surprised by her.
Oh, gonna throw an egg. Is this Yoshi's Island? Oh man, yeah, this is the Game Boy Advance port of Yoshi's Island. That's a great port.
Was it a good port?
It was such a good port. It was such a great port. I say yes to that one. Yoshi's Island. That's one of the greatest video games of all time.
Yoshi, okay, they can do it.
So Yoshi, we're allowing them to sponsor us.
If we're going to give Greg Yoshi, then we should get Yoshinoya.
the
Those
beef
beef
bowl?
bowls, yeah.
I would love a Yoshinoya beef bowl.
You would not.
You-
would
do you
shit
know-
through your jeans.
Do you know that's a place you could go to right now? Like we could all get out,
No.
pile into the car, and go to Yoshinoya. I
That feels
bet you anything.
very 2000.
I bet
Yeah.
you anything that there's a Yoshinoya within driving distance of this place.
If we got there, though, I still would not order food.
No.
Well,
I
no.
would just stare at them like they do exist. Perfect tangent, perfect segue to somebody else who might make us shit through our jeans. Let us watch. These cars are all driving on two wheels.
No, I do 4.
Bring it on.
Oh wow, it's because they got these heavy
Their
burritos.
food is so heavy.
It's beefy. It's the
Grilled stuffed burrito?
from Taco
It's the
Bell.
introduction of
Seasoned
grilled
beef,
stuffed
grilled
burritos.
Wow.
cheeses,
Oh, I'm a
silver-sided
major
grilled
yes.
Tortilla. The affordable
I
heavy
like,
duty portable is
my
just
stomach.
$1.99.
I just,
Even the bus, everybody in the bus
For the
is eating the
heaviest
Taco
meal
Bell.
on wheels, you got to think outside the box.
it's still like, because we're in 2002.
Yeah.
It's still a little 90s to me because it's still like, there's this cool thing coming, and then the action shots of the burrito.
Yeah, dude.
Uh-huh.
I like that they called it affordable. You know, like when I'm gonna get a burrito, I don't want to break the bank.
No.
Did you guys hear that Republican politician or talking head who was like, man, everything's so expensive. I went to Taco Bell. My lunch was $28.
Yeah, dude.
What did you order?
That's
good
still
sir?
tough to do.
How big is that Baja Blast?
Yeah, dude. That guy got extra Baja Blast.
Taco Bell's in.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Everyone freeze.
Not voted. That's Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Oh, she's going to do the entrapment. She's going to do an
Justin,
entrapment.
And he's bored stiff. Let's change that.
Look at that phone. It's a flip phone.
He's not going to be bored in line now.
It is so hard for me to imagine
doing
Catherine
colorful.
Zeta-Jones using a flip phone.
Cool. Turn it up.
Now get the most
How he's
minutes to
getting on
use
board is he
whenever.
caught a friend who's
Introducing
describing a kung fu
T-Mobile.
film to him.
Get more.
He's chopping.
Men think about women every
Oh, we're jumping right to
5.3
one.
seconds.
Men
And
think about women
soap?
every
Probably
5.3
never,
seconds.
because they're all the same, except this one. High
never
endurance
got soap.
deodorant soap made just for guys.
Oh, wow. It's so
Maybe
weird to
now
see an
women
Old
will
Spice
think
commercial
about
that
you
isn't
every
like
5.3
starring a
Bananas?
centaur like
Yeah.
piloting a boat through space.
So what I like about that is the generically handsome guy says men think about women every 5.3 seconds. That's code for sex, right?
Yeah.
But
They're thinking about boobs.
never think about soap. So he's saying if you want to bang, wash your junk.
Yes. Which honestly, that's probably a good message.
Do girls, are they into Old Spice?
Girls
yeah,
love
dude.
Old Spice.
Yeah.
My body does not. My body breaks out in literal
When-
rashes. I say no.
When a woman gets close to you after she has moved through the cloud of Axe body spray and she goes to smell your neck, she should only smell Old Spice.
This is probably more about me than Old Spice deodorant, but there are certain versions of it where I will use it and then it will eat part of my armpit skin.
Yes.
Yeah, where it like burns.
Yeah. And
That-
then like
That's not you.
if I look at it, like there will be not huge, but like very thin layers of skin taken out of my armpit.
That's
I-
your body rejecting the deodorant.
They're a bad company.
Maybe invent new spice and that'll work.
I say I vote no for
May,
Old Spice.
you know what? Honestly, pretty soon I'm going to stop buying the thing that burns my armpits. How about that?
Someday.
Yeah, soon, probably.
Is Old Spice what everybody in Dune was after?
Yeah. That's what made their eyes go crazy because they snorted it.
Don't rub it in your eyes, you
Breathe in
idiot.
so much Old Spice, I could see the future.
All right, I'm pretty pumped about this next one. It's directly tied into one of our movies.
Charles Entertainment Cheese.
Oh shit.
Okay. If you've ever been in your room and you just want to shoot thick ropes, now you
love
finally have the opportunity.
It is a web slinger.
I worked at KB Toys and we had these at KB Toys.
Did you cover each other?
No, we never got to play with them.
What does KB stand for?
Kids be
Kyle's
buying.
big. Oh.
Kids be
Kids be
buying.
buying toys.
Kids.
All right. We're going to do two more.
This
How's
is
that
an
sound?
Elmo.
It's
Now,
not- it's not
Ryan.
two more. Yeah.
This is from like 20 years ago.
Right.
Elmo's over, right?
Yeah, no, nobody talks about Elmo anymore.
Jeffrey is very sad. Jeffrey the giraffe.
Why does he sound so old?
This 2-day sale is going to be rough on Jeffrey.
Oh, yeah.
Because these toys are his friends. and he's
Not
gonna
as
sell
rough
them
as
all.
when investment bankers came in and bought up his company and then stripped it for parts.
I'm Jeffrey. Does this commercial make you mad? Because this is for Toys R Us and you're a KB boy.
Kids be buying toy boys.
It makes me mad because there are no more Toys R Us's anymore.
And then my favorite commercial.
Goose.
Wow.
I'm not comfortable saying that word. Why? Goose.
You can also blow up the goose. The goose glows in the dark.
Kids love just crap.
Yeah.
Here's just absolute junk. I want it.
I would just watch these commercials and write them down, every single one, regardless, on my Christmas list.
Do you think they have a goose for adults? Maybe a gray goose?
It's high end.
It's
actually not.
filtered.
It's actually
They
just your average
pretended
vodka,
like-
and they
Yeah.
put it in a really nice
Super
goose
nice
bottle.
goose.
It comes in a plastic egg that you
Well,
sip
okay.
out of.
I
Fabergé.
demand the Yoshi Advance account.
Okay.
First of all, that game has never been more popular.
I whatever on Yoshi. I'm Yoshi neutral, but I do think that because of its fuel for us
Yeah.
to this day, and the incredible shooting of not just the entire commercial, but that burrito, Taco Bell is in for sure.
That's insane to me.
I haven't had Taco Bell in like a year.
That means you can never have it again.
There are still, I would still say there are probably 5 pounds of Taco Bell on me.
In your
because I
colon.
ate, so much of
it's
it
like
for
chewing
so
gum.
long.
It stays in your body for 7 years.
The last time I had Taco Bell was with Ryan, and halfway through my burrito, I was like, we need to find a bathroom immediately. That's how fast it moves through me.
If you, it's funny you said like if you haven't had it in a year, your body forgets that it's
Yeah.
supposed to just accept that that's food, and if you try it again, your body's like, where'd you find this, dude? Don't eat
Yeah,
this.
this is plastic.
Yeah, this is not food.
I've never, and I know this is the wrong segment to bring this up on because it's future sponsors and we're trying to get money, but
get that Taco Bell account, Ryan.
I've never seen somebody eat a grilled stuffed burrito like Mike because he will rip off the top, suck out all the filling, and then use that and fill it back up with poop.
Well, nothing can hold
Taco Bell
the
poop.
Taco Bell burrito.
Finally, a food that comes with its own TP.
Well, get at us, sponsors. We've, I think, okayed all of you, especially T-Mobile.
By the way, if you actually are a sponsor on our show, we won't make fun of your product or say it gave us diarrhea or that Mike uses it to wipe his butt.
Yeah. Totally listen to Movie of the Year and how we talk about fucking cyberspace.
Oh, man.
we
you gotta
never
get
make fun of that.
these new underwear that are so great.
I could use some new underwear, honestly.
You should get some.
Hit at me, Mac Weldon.
I want to say, too, that there were a couple that we said no to. Those are obvious. Those are like subtle yeses, right? Like Heineken, yeah.
We're playing hard to
hit us back. We're gonna put you on the show.
We're just being coy. We'll pitch your terrible beer.
All right. Those are our sponsors.
Get at us,
We're gonna
sponsies.
Take a break and then be very serious and talk to her.
Should I have recorded that?
Taste Buds, we are treated to multiple other shows within the film, including the bookending plays, bullfighting, a backyard musical performance, Lydia's interview, and a 7-minute short film in the style of an old silent horror movie. What is Pedro doing handing so much of his movie to these other works that he did not direct?
Yeah, I was going to say.
What?
That silent film is clearly a pre-existing silent film.
If you're watching the movie, you can see like the movie stops and someone clicks on YouTube and just pulls up different random videos.
The dances, I feel like I've seen that kind of thing before. The silent film, definitely not. I want to talk about that. The one that stuck with me the most, though, was that interview. Because the movie had seemed so
grounded.
Serious?
Yeah, grounded. And that was like a little hint of the movie Brazil. Or a little bit of like almost Hunger Games.
An SNL character.
Yeah. So the
I would say Argentina, but go with Brazil.
The setup is that Lydia, who's a famous bullfighter, is going to, I guess, fight 6 bulls. Unfortunately, the first one takes her out right away. So we don't get to actually see that. But she's giving this interview, and she doesn't want to talk about her ex-boyfriend, also bullfighter, who we'll see later, El Nino. And the interviewer is demanding that she do it, so much to the fact that Lydia gets up and is going to storm off the set. And the lady grabs her arm and pulls her back down.
Gets dragged. Yeah, she pulls her back down and then almost gets dragged off the couch.
And then lays on the couch and kind of holds her hand out as she walks away. And she's still saying, talking about their relationship with El Nino.
All of the reasons that all of these things. So let's say 4. Let's say 2 plays, a movie, and an interview. No,
Yes.
and a song.
And that backyard performance.
I think the backyard song, too. So
which was that guy's voice was so beautiful.
I know.
Oh, my gosh.
That's what it's like to be rich, is you just hire professionals.
Oh, I thought you were saying you just voices something amazing.
That's got to be music moment.
I love how Pedro does this thing of they're all obvious why they're there.
Yeah.
And yet so exciting to talk about and figure out why there's other less obvious elements to them. But let's start with the interview, which is, I think, very purposely put in early in the movie to let you know that it does sort of kickstart this thing of man, we're not going to be like this the whole time.
Yeah.
That's extreme. We're never going to be like that TV interview, but we aren't going to be like this very quiet, subtle
Totally normal.
drama.
Yeah. It's it's not magical realism, but it's a little bit of absurdity, a little bit of camp, maybe.
And that's, again, Almodóvar is just sprinkling some camp on his stuff.
And because he almost wants to say, does that mean you turn down in any way the drama? And he challenges you to say no.
It can all
because
exist.
life is that stupid. Life is that absurd. And I'm not to even depict it. I have to do these things that are kind of out there.
Yeah, the whole movie has a crescendo on it as far as the telenovela, soap opera, melodrama of the whole movie goes. But then there's these certain orchestra hits, and that serves as one of just to let you know what you're watching.
And it starts with the performance art piece of the women whose are their eyes closed and there's tables and chairs all over stage, and they are doing sometimes a choreographed dance, sometimes just throwing themselves against the wall, and a guy is just running around trying to get the tables
clear
and chairs.
out the chairs.
Yeah, they're in some state, but luckily they have a guy there. Even though we can't talk to them, there's a guy there to come and rescue them and be their hero and shove everything. Yeah,
and that's
their
what
own
makes
womanness.
Marco cry.
And they're wearing the white slip that you see Alicia wear all the time. It's the same exact outfit that she wears.
But women are just patients, just quiet, speechless patients that we have to come in and save.
And this exasperated looking, sweaty, wide-eyed dude is just throwing all the things out of their way for them.
And do we know? I know about the interview and the movie, the silent film, but are the plays that bookend the movie, are those real?
Yeah, I mean, those are in-universe actual shows because Benigno is going to that. Because
No, I'm sorry. Are they in our universe?
Oh, like are they?
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a really good question because I don't think so. I think they're generated for I think they're part of the fiction of the movie.
But they are believable enough, more than
Oh yeah, especially if you got into a small theater in a
film.
big city. That's the kind of shit you
performance
see.
art. Look, I like a lot of esoteric,
Yeah.
stupid bullshit.
You're very smart.
Performance art sucks.
Because we've described the first one, and then the second dance number is the woman almost pretending to sing. Again, reminded me of Mulholland
Yes.
Drive, right? Or not really pretending to sing. It's like there's a song going on, and then a man is running around. A bunch of men are holding her and carrying her through the air as she is kind of
She just goes
limp. And then a guy runs up with a microphone every once in a while, and she goes into it.
Yeah.
That was the one where I was like, I dig this. But whereas the first one, I could totally see how it connected to the movie.
Right.
That was the one where I was like, okay, she doesn't have a voice. She can only sigh.
And
all these men are moving her.
And all the men are in charge of the microphone. And it's let's listen to her. But really her talking is just whenever she is allowed to have the microphone by the men.
Yeah.
You get to talk when we allow you to talk.
And then all she does is sigh or grunt.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to listen to.
Yeah.
We
And
just
the
need
men
to allow
fought
you to
over
think
the
that you're
sighing.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, she did it.
And then there's an actual woman singing, and they're kind of dancing to that, but not attending to it in a way. They're paying attention to the silent woman that's right there with them.
And I think that we still have to get to the silent film, but I think that the two plays that bookend the movie really speak to the fact that, bitch, you have no idea what you're watching. You have no idea the influence that this is having on you.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to see that with Benigno in watching it. We don't know at that time, and he will never know how much this pop culture is manipulating him and turning him into the person that he is. And I'm not saying that pop culture is responsible for him raping someone, but he is. I think Pedro is at a certain time saying that this stuff is seeping in, and whatever your broken brain is taking out of it is a big influence
That you
on
can
you.
twist whatever you
Yes.
take in to what you want the message.
And then
to be.
and then that way you can get to the point where you can say, no, I'm going to marry her because I'm in love with her. Because in part because of the pop culture that you watch, you will twist it to have it say whatever you want it to say. And that's what Pedro's doing with this stuff. I'm twisting it so it is little microcosms of my movie.
And because he can be her. Because he can totally contain her. He can be himself, which becomes he becomes smaller and smaller and smaller as he becomes more and more her, right? But even the fact that he thinks that he can, I'll just carry on her life, that he can totally encapsulate and understand her that easily.
And what has Pedro been doing this entire career, making movies about women? That exact same thing.
Well, yeah.
Oh, I'm going to tell women's stories, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the scripts. I'm going to direct them. I'm going to encapsulate the parts of the lives that I find interesting. I'm just as bad as they are.
I was thinking about this while watching this. Isn't every story where a man creates a female character, isn't every one of those Pygmalion? Isn't it always you create this statue of the perfect woman and then you fall in love with it? And
think about the 80s and the 90s and the amount of movies that we saw where the dork gets the hot chick. And who was writing and directing those movies?
Dorks. But I don't think Almodóvar's in that same boat. Because
I think he is
commenting on it.
Well, no,
and he's afraid. He's paranoid
I think
that
he's
is what he is.
interrogating himself.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. Yeah, because he's part of the culture. He's part of producing all this stuff. There are a lot of, especially male auteurs, who seem to be drawn to telling ladies' stories. And it's what's going on there? Are you completely guiltless at the end of the day when
This is you can't. I don't know if you can make or as great as talk to her without doing this to yourself. And I think this is why the stock for blue is the warmest color has fallen so much since it came out, because that now in hindsight seems so clearly. I want to film two girls fucking,
Right.
and I'll tell a story around it. But with this,
I don't know what that looks like, but I know what the male version of
Right.
the
Right.
imagined, yeah.
and I refuse to ask or have a woman come in and direct, or I just want to make my own thing.
Yeah.
I can imagine it with my eyes closed.
But
I got it from here.
I do think that, and also we're right now we're dealing with Blonde, the Andrew
Uh-huh.
Dominic movie, which seems to be putting audiences through the ringer. and saying like, "You did this to Marilyn Monroe," and everyone saying, "Bitch, you
While he's
did
making
this
up
to
stuff that did not happen in her life.
and like making torture porn. This I feel like Almodóvar is being exactly as introspective or like reflecting it on us as much as he is him and storytelling and relationships and what are we doing here.
Didn't we more or less though torture and kill Marilyn Monroe, even if the details are different than as depicted in that movie?
Sure, but this guy wanted to make torture porn.
Yeah.
And it would subject the
I
audience.
haven't seen Blonde. This is just based on what I've seen.
Yeah, based on what Twitter has told us.
Yeah. But I know I do think that Almodóvar is like, he finds it interesting to do this stuff to the audience, to his characters, and to himself all at the same time. And that's interesting to us as well.
Right.
Whereas it sounds like, based on what I've heard, Dominic is doing it in a very uninteresting way.
It's an actual smart human being, and then in Almodóvar, and then a dummy who thinks he's smart.
And,
See, and
I love his movies so far. I really
Yes.
do. But it sounds like he
Oh,
shit the
Dominic.
bed. Dominic. Is it
So-
time, Mike?
No, it's. I want to talk about the silent film. Is that what?
That's what I mean. Is it
Yeah.
time?
And talk about we've talked about Lynch a few times in Mulholland Drive. The silent film is a Racerhead, all over the place. It reminded me of that so much. It's disturbing to watch. It's goofy looking and creepy at the same time. And a man shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until he crawls inside of a giant rubber vagina.
That was not a real vagina?
It was not, Ryan, and that was not a real shrinking man.
Well, certainly the pubes were real, though.
Those were real pubes.
Yeah, you could tell because how real they looked.
Those wiry.
Yeah, it's okay. This is the way that this is interspersed with Benino's like description of the night is he's like getting ready to. It feels like for the first time ever, rape Alicia, and he's like telling her the story of this silent film, which is about a man who, to like prove that he is listening to his scientist girlfriend, takes her concoction, which she tells him not to take repeatedly, and then he just does, and then he shrinks, and then they still try to carry on a relationship even though he's a tiny little guy. And then at the end of it, it's just she's like, I'm going to fall asleep. And I thought what was going to happen is she's like, I'm afraid I'll crush you. And he's like, don't worry. And I thought what was going to happen was she's going to crush him.
Right.
But instead, she falls asleep, and he like undresses her, runs all over her naked body, and then finally puts himself into her vagina.
Now, the first part that you said, the run all over the naked body, reminded me a lot of Benino, of like he caressed the breast in the same way that Benini did as a nurse, right? And
simp.
And that's sort of where we're getting the comparisons then. But then we get to him being basically the size of a vagina and not doing the typical thing, I would think, what I would do in that situation, which is try and use my tiny little wiener inside of that vagina. But instead, almost like praying to the altar of this God and going in, like, testing out the waters, and then going fully inside. Which, honestly, like, now that it's 2022, felt like I was watching The Boys. Like, that's what this movie felt like.
And I mean, very much, it's sexual, but it's also very much like a reverse birth, right? And very much like the idea that he never comes out. And so, like, he has fused or merged with or become ultimately a part of this woman.
He's an anglerfish.
And, yeah.
Where the dude attaches to the female and then just becomes gonads.
And my
disappears.
question is this. Did Almodóvar go a little bit too far in making kind of is that too obvious? Is all of that too...
The reason I don't think so is because we watch Benino become what he becomes. And I guess you could say that he was always going to... eventually, like, he was going to come to this end, and the movie was not, like, what taught him
and
into it.
And we can only speculate that this is the time that this happened and maybe the only time or the first time that this happened. It feels that
part's hard, right?
But there's a lot we're not shown, and so we don't exactly know.
And the time jumps and choppiness.
She is suddenly, he has just put her in an incredible amount of makeup and like tried to do something with her hair, but she looks at once 7 and like.
But
like,
I think it completes the cycle of I took care of my mom like I'm taking care of Alicia, and she gave birth to me. And we were 1, and then we were 2. And now me and Alicia are 2, and now we're going to become 1. And I think that's what leads him to go off on the whole we're in love, I'm going to marry her thing. Like when he says that to Marco, I know the guy's kind of twisted, but when he says that to Marco, he really believes that, like, he's like surprised by Marco's reaction.
Oh yeah,
like,
he's
what do you
never thought.
No, we're in love, and he thought that it was just a natural matter of course that we're gonna become one again, and I'm gonna climb back into the.
And because
vagina.
Marco has never really checked his weird behavior,
Right?
until
Yeah,
that
it's
moment.
twofold. It is that
Marco
he fully
sees it.
believes that, and that he thought Marco was the one guy he could just say all his
Finally.
weird shit to. And so when Marco's like, consent, brother, Benino's like, but you're Marco.
And Marco is as much talking to Marco there as he's talking to Benino. I mean, he's
Because-
very like he's saying everything that is 100% true, but that's like Almodóvar like making a movie for himself. Marco is talking to himself there, like you can't do this, dude.
And this is the point where Marco realizes that it's stupid to be in love with a lady in a coma that never loved you. I'm gonna be in love with this guy instead.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be his. This is my real life BFF / not like sexual lover, but like this is where all of my feelings are gonna go, and that's what makes him so defensive of Benino for the rest of the movie.
And it's clear in Marco's what is very traditionally male in him is he's like, well, with the snake thing, and then with how he treats Benino, he's like, well, I need to take care of and protect a weak person who doesn't know better.
Yeah.
Like that's his like beating his chest.
And ultimately, like in the end of the movie, Benino is gone. Alicia is still there. Alicia and Marco are going to be together.
I don't think that's true. I don't know where I didn't see that part.
Well, I guess because
really? Because of the title card that says Alicia and Marco?
But they're
last one's
just
Alicia
in a
and Marco.
theater 2 rows away.
But they keep
But they're
smiling
looking at each other, and she's under like a dude. That the implication at the end of that movie is that
I read
here's
that
what you
too.
have: Alicia looking at him in that innocent, like agog. Him looking back, like I'm gonna pursue this, and the teacher, the
ballet teacher who
looking
knows Marco.
aghast, yeah, and looking like. Because she did the same thing a lot of other people did, which is she knows it's not cool for him to be around Marco, that it's not really right, that that he should not be talking to Alicia,
Right.
but she kind of countenances it so long that when it does become a problem, which she looks distraught. In that last shot, she looks very concerned about the energy that's flowing between the two of them. And the fact that the title card comes up and says Alicia and Marco.
And it feels like Marco's going to do what Benino did to Alicia, Marco's going to do to Benino,
Yeah.
and live out what Benino wanted his life to be.
yeah,
or
okay.
he's gonna replace Benino
Yeah.
with Alicia, and then live on in that same way. And I think that honestly,
And it does make sense that they're all of these take place in a audience of a play.
yeah,
like,
right.
Being,
And then so at least in the realm of the movie, Benino passes on and kind of does become Alicia, like
Right.
because
which
she,
is his dream the
Yeah,
entire time.
right.
Is not to like it doesn't feel a lot like they want to have a healthy couplehood.
No.
Even though
No.
Benino's very healthy, very unhealthy about things. It's
That was an accident.
that they do want to become Voltron. They want
Yeah.
to Voltron
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, they want the woman so much that they want to become her child. Like they want it, dude. Men, 2022. Like I mean, they want this fusing. They want to be the woman that they love. It's not enough to just like possess her and control her.
That's the man.
That does sound like man.
That one's on purpose. It's speed round, gentlemen. The plot and interconnections between the characters are both very complex in this. Is there ever a time where that complexity gets to be too much?
I honestly think that dropping that interview was so fucking masterful. Like the TV interview that Marco watches, and it just sort of set you up to know that like this is the kind of movie, this is the kind of movie it's going to be. Is that it has things like this. It's on TV, so therefore it doesn't matter. Like that's fiction, but also we're watching this on a TV.
I think,
and it sort of makes everything fiction.
I think that there are scenes that have to be so expository to get you caught up with what's going on. But the more I think about it, the more it's like those are the telenovela scenes,
Right.
Like that's what you have to have in a really complicated plot. Is finally someone needs to stand up because like El Nino, when he's like, "Here's exactly what
Right.
happened." It felt too expository to me at first, but if you think about it, it's even in the movie, it's supposed to be kind of awkward in a way.
We needed that narrator.
Performance is so much part of everybody is always performing no matter where they are. That
Yeah.
El Nino, a professional performer, is now performing for an audience who isn't there, as he tells Marco.
Yeah.
As far as soap operas go, like maybe you like All My Children, but I like Almodóvar.
Mm-hmm.
If you were a shrinking lover, where would you head?
7-Eleven.
I think up on
Swim
the
in a Slurpee?
shoulder.
I would get
hide under
the
the hair, like on the neck of the back of the hair.
I get under that nacho cheese machine. Just fucking fill
Just
up.
drown and die. Just like I don't know, like maybe snowboard along the décolletage.
Oh,
I would definitely take a nap in my own crock. That sounds nice.
Just
I don't know if that
smelling your own feet.
whiffing your own stank.
I guess I hadn't thought of that part.
I'm huffing Gregfoot tonight.
Almodóvar's original title for this movie was Loneliness. What's the title for this movie that would have been even more on the nose?
Yo, she's in a coma too? Coma too?
Coma two coma, two still.
Does this movie judge its characters? Are any shown to be quote-unquote good? Are any purely quote-unquote evil? Or is it painting a more complex world than that? I think we've talked about this all the
it's a
time.
complex world.
Yeah. But honestly, I think in the end, I'm looking at El Nino and I'm thinking like this was like
He's the good guy.
Yeah, and you know what? Part of it is because he's I think a little more simple.
Ryan.
And I think that there's a way in which all of these people
He's
are
a dumb
little,
Chad. Be a Chad.
Yeah, they're a little too complicated for their own good, and so they lie to themselves, and so then they lie to everybody else.
And honestly, with directors, with filmmakers that seem like Almodóvar, according to how I see him, these are the guys who always get shit on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Like, because I was a nerd in high school or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like to give him this role of like, no, I'm the dude.
Straightforward,
And, yeah.
honest, masculine.
Our final question. Before recommending this movie to anybody, what's the ramp up you need to give?
Yeah, it's hard because like when you want to tell somebody about a movie like this, you want to tell them so little because part of it is it lays out the scenes one at a time and you have to be there constructing it yourself. But at the same time, it's like, do you really send somebody into a movie about a guy that rapes his patient? Like without being like, by the way, this is deeply weird and there's a lot that's messed up. But if you tell somebody that how messed up and weird this movie is before they start watching it, they can't experience it.
See, I don't really recommend like Eli Roth movies or what's that one movie? The
Avengers.
The Avengers : Age of Ultron. I don't really recommend those kind of movies.
That's true.
But I would say no. I would say no.
No ramp up.
Yeah, I would give no TW, and I would just. But I also,
I wouldn't like if I
wouldn't recommend it to. Like, I would recommend this to a very small group of people.
Right.
I guess one thing I might say is like, it is art. Like it's an arty movie and it's very complex, and so
You'd warn them about that before you'd warn them
Yeah,
about
exactly.
Well,
Like,
but that would be
yeah.
my oblique way of saying, like, because if something is art, that means it's like, who was it? It was the lady from Verdict who just, she said recently in an interview, I don't think film is supposed to make you feel comfortable. Like, I don't think film is supposed to make you feel good. That's the spirit in which I would tell somebody about this movie. Like, movies, if you believe movies are meant to make you feel good, then you don't want to watch this movie.
And
but if you think
Go
that
watch
movies
The
are,
Waterboy, you
if you-
fucking peasant.
if you think that movies are meant to show us a part of life that's not easy to understand or easy to
Right.
look at most of the time, then go see this.
I have a feeling, and I might be wrong, because I think part of this movie is like you are wrong. You might be wrong about the people that you know,
Uh-huh.
but I have a feeling about the people that I know if they would give this a 1-star on Letterboxd because of the
Yes.
elements in it, and though I would not recommend it to them.
Maybe they're people who hate The Boys and talk
Sure.
about how much they hate The Boys all the time.
Or people who just can't get past someone being victimized
Yeah.
like this, and it just makes them feel so uncomfortable and it just takes them out of the experience, then I wouldn't
And
recommend
that's fine.
it.
That's what Mr. Deeds is for.
But like, I wouldn't want to ruin your.
There are other movies than bad Adam Sandler movies, Mike.
I don't
Yeah.
think so. There's
You're picking from
Almodóvar
one
and
particular
Sandler.
era. Yeah, I wouldn't want to ruin their 2 hours and then probably their week if I already knew that like they're gonna hate this because of one element. I'm not judging them.
Right.
I'm
They
just,
won't be able to see through. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that is all the time we have for any questions. We're going to take the quickest break, and then it's award season. We will end how we always end, with awards.
With the beginning.
At
the
the
beginning.
beginning.
And this is a movie that was nominated for and won a frick ton of awards.
Which means it should have been like disqualified from the Sweet 16.
Because it won too many awards?
Academy Award? Are you kidding me? That's
But
disgusting.
it
to
only
me.
won original screenplay.
It
It didn't even get nominated for Best Foreign Picture because Spain put another movie up.
Spain, come on, what are you doing?
Spain?
They're like, don't pay attention to this movie.
Being a Spain in my ass.
We're going to start how we often do here with recommendations. Greg, what do you got?
There are so many movies that I thought of while watching this and so many books, but ultimately what I landed on was the novel by Nabokov, Lolita.
Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding
Is that
me?
the same thing for you?
Close.
Lolita's obviously about a lot of things that are uncomfortable, but one of the things it's about
Obviously.
is can you? Humbert says he loves Lolita, even though she's just a little girl, and then at the same time he despises her because she's a little girl, because she's not refined in the way that he likes. And so it's an examining what is it like to love and loathe something at the same time, and just tell yourself that you're not abusing this person when it's obvious that you are lying to yourself about that. And that's what I see here. I see Almodóvar looking at men and saying, you say you love women, but what you mean when you say you love women is you love this empty space into which you can project something.
Isn't that just, that feels like, so with Lolita and with Talk to Her, they're extreme examples, but that's just how so many dude-ass dudes
and that's the thing. I think
deal with dating.
I think what gets lost when people talk about Lolita is what's really being critiqued is that men, not men having relationships with children, which obviously is wrong, but what's being critiqued there really is the way men just talk about women and the way men treat women, adult women.
Right.
And the fact that it's you fucking hate these people. So why do you want to have relationships with them? Or if you want to have relationships with them, why can't you find a way not to fucking hate them and make their lives miserable and abuse them and treat them like garbage? And how can you say you are doing both of those things at the same time? And it's obvious when it's a woman in a coma. It's obvious when it's an underage girl. But they are both showing the extreme, fucked up relationships between men and women that we have become accustomed to countenancing, to burying our heads in the sand, to excusing, our fellow men for engaging in or something. Why? How can you love where you loathe at the same time? And I think that's what Lolita is about.
Ryan?
Mike, my recommendation, because I want people to read or watch things that maybe that they're not already doing that aren't that famous. Stanley Kubrick, we all know his classic films, Killer's Kiss, The Killing. Did he make others?
The Kissing Killers.
The Kissing Killers. But in 1962, he made a movie called The Shining, or Lolita. And if
The Shining Lolita?
If you watch that movie, it almost feels more like a classic Hollywood movie than a Kubrick capital K movie. But if you watch it, it's a master of film tackling uncomfortable shit. And not saying, thumbs up, guys, this is all okay to do. But we can't have these conversations unless we go past the taboos that are there and then talk about it. I am not saying that rape of coma patients or dating a 14-year-old,
if that, yeah,
is okay. I'm just saying that once we start the conversation like that, where do we go from there?
Right.
And you can feel this master. It's not in anybody's top 5 of Kubrick movies, but it is still a masterpiece because you're watching somebody be like, I'm going to do this. You know what?
Well, that's because his bench is just so deep, right?
It's true. Like, he has made like 5 of the top 25 movies of all time. But I'm gonna start the conversation as grossly as possible, which I think Pedro's doing here, and then saying, where do we go from here after that? Once you're already over the fact that I started this conversation, now what do I get to say? And I think that's how both movies are in conversation.
Ryan.
Mine is after you've watched Lolita, read Lolita, watched Talk to Her, and you're like...
You watched Long Island Lolita with Drew Barrymore?
Listen to the Jamie Loftus podcast about Lolita.
I want I want to stay in this realm, but a lighter fare. Head over to While You Were Sleeping, which is also a coma romance in such a different way.
A comance.
A comance, if you will. There are so few comances. And Sandra Bullock and Bill Pullman at some of their best performances.
Wait, is it Peter Gallagher in the coma?
I think it's Gallagher.
Is it Sandy Cohen?
It's Sandy Cohen as a coma. And Sandy Bull falls for Bill Pullman instead.
And if I remember correctly, Sandy Cohen wakes up and everybody is like, hey, your girlfriend is now in love with your brother. And he's like, what? I just woke up from a coma.
Why did I shit myself?
Is this a Moonstruck?
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. It's a Raising Arizona.
All right, moving on to awards. Ryan, most shocking moment.
Most shocking moment, I have to say, is a man going and then diving straight into a vagina.
Ryan.
I thought I, at this point in the movie, knew everything it was going to give, but that is my most shocking moment, too. I did not expect the cartoonish weirdness of then. Greg, what's yours?
For me, it's not when he dives into the vagina, because as soon as you see the big vagina. You're like, that guy's
Well,
gonna
that guy's
go
gonna
in
crawl
there. But the thing I didn't expect was he's like running across her shoulder, running across her boob, and you're like, this is so gross. I don't want to be watching this. And then it cuts to this like 15-foot tall, big rubber vagina, and I didn't expect that. And the pubic hair.
Based on the look of the vagina, did you guys expect it to cut to Mark Summers host a Double Dare?
Dude, yes.
And the
You
kids
got
Ryan.
slimed.
My note here says, on first seeing the Double Dare vagina. Like, I expected there to be a big orange flag in there, and some kid was going to have to root around in there until he found it.
If there was a Playboy Double Dare after dark, this would be part of it.
At the point when he dives into it, like, I'm already so blown away just by looking at that.
It's literal. It's so rare your jaw is on the floor. Just like.
And I got to say, though, and I don't think that this was Almodóvar's point, if I'm in that situation, I'm doing the same thing.
Well, if you wake the woman up and you get consent.
Oh, no. I'm pretending that she's awake.
Yeah. She was not, though.
Well, also, isn't that what Benino was doing, Ryan? Pretending that she's
Yeah,
awake?
exactly, yeah.
Which brings me to, Greg, to you. Benino as Benini.
Okay. So
And what does that mean, Ryan? Because you've said both their names in tandem, and you were so lucky I didn't decide to give Greg a point every time you called him the wrong
I'm
name.
sorry, but
you really messed yourself up there, too.
I did read that Pedro Almodóvar's best friend is Roberto Benigni, and this character is based on him and named after him.
Damn.
Roberto Benigni.
Well, now
do
we
you guys
know-
remember that guy?
now I'm worried
Yeah,
about
the
Roberto
Italian.
From 1997, Life
was-
is Beautiful.
Uh-huh.
Made
I'm
a
run out of
Pinocchio.
English. I want to make love to
He
all
made a
of you.
Pinocchio.
Yeah, ran across the chairs at the Oscar ceremony.
Yes.
I'm sorry that I couldn't say the guy's name right, but once I read that, it broke my brain.
Yeah.
Because, guys, you two are my best friends. I love you both. If I wrote a movie like this, I'm not naming a character like
Especially
Benigno
I
after
would,
you two.
I would then be like, what do you think I'm like? Like, do we need to have a talk?
I have some questions for you.
I think I act normal and I really don't.
So
Greg?
I
what
guess
is your Bernardo
I
Benigni?
guess I was going for like that clownish angle, and I was gonna say when he runs to return her wallet. So he's been waiting for this opportunity. He's watching her in dance class, and then she comes out of dance class and she goes into her purse, and she accidentally drops her wallet. And so he's been waiting for an opening like this. And you're very interested as the viewer to see like how's he gonna like open? You know, what's your first move, man? And he runs down, grabs her wallet, and then just walks next to her for a really long time,
side eyeing her.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
man.
it's so cartoonish and so clownish. And then he actually
and she's like, "What the fuck is going
Yeah,
on?"
she's
He's
like, "What
"Oh
the
no,
fuck is
I'm
your-"
sorry."
because her initial instincts about him are absolutely right.
Right.
You see in that scene several times where she's like, I shouldn't let this guy just
You
walk
go
with
to a
me."
different apartment building.
Yeah, dude.
Every one of her interactions is right. She's
Yeah.
always like, "Fuck you, what's your deal? Get out of my face."
For sure. But there is just something about the clownish way he marches next to her for a little bit. I was like, that's Benini, baby.
Ryan,
My Beniniest moment
what's your
is
Benino baby?
so he makes an appointment at her apartment, which is also her dad's doctor's office.
Yes.
And then gets out of the appointment with the psychiatrist and then walks down the hall towards her bedroom where there's a whole thing of model airplanes, and he runs into it and like catches two airplanes. And I was like, it was borderline like, oh, kick off a shoot so you can catch a third airplane
Right,
with
like
your
Charlie
toes.
Chaplin.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm Charlie Chaplining this horrible thing I'm doing,
Right.
which to me is Benini up and down.
I dropped one of my AirPod Pros the other day, and I don't know why, but suddenly I was
Trying
like,
to
I'll
kick for
catch it with my foot, and I like hacky sacked it across the room. I punted this
Just into your
thing.
cat's face.
The Greg in my head puts his leg out in such a way where it rolls down the leg and then back up
Right
in the
back
ear.
into your
the ear.
mouth.
Basically, that's what happened.
Cringiest moment, Ryan.
Look, this is a movie that's exploring cringe, that
Right.
wants
Yeah.
you to be cringe.
You start cringing in the beginning, and you don't stop.
So I have to pick the killing of the bull because that was totally fine to do.
When it had like
because
6 swords in it.
the owner of the bull said, "Oh, we were going to kill this bull anyway,
Mhm.
so why don't you film it?" And then they shot that like.
Oh wait, IRL.
Yeah, in
Oh
real
my
life,
God.
and they put that dart thing in it, in like where it has the ribbons on it, and like now you can go because
Yeah.
what does that piss the bull
Yeah,
off
gets
more?
it angry.
And so, and then like, we were just gonna slaughter it, so film it and make it look cool. And that's, I know how cringy this movie is, but I do desperately believe in Almodóvar so much that Pedro is fucked up.
This award is supposed to be for like, it's basically accidental cringe. When a movie's trying to make you cringe, that doesn't fucking count.
Like what wasn't, and I don't think I do think that like we've come pretty far as like we shouldn't do that to animals
Yes.
in the last 20 years.
I mean,
I didn't realize in 2002 we still thought it was cool to
Exactly.
do those animals.
this is my moment as well, and this has really become a thing for me on this show. Like, your job is to make a movie, and that means you take fictive elements and you weave them together to create an image of life. I'm getting really pissed off every time I find out, and you can see it now. Like, you get used to it when you start getting annoyed by it. But like, don't honestly scare your crew. Don't honestly trick them. Don't spray them with something when they're not expecting it. Don't kill a fucking animal and torture it to death on film as a way of saying, look how like harsh we are as a culture. Can you believe that like this blood sport is something we do? Well, you just filmed it.
Directors will scare their crew a lot to scare their audience a little.
Yeah.
But
Fuck
one
that.
time that I think it's okay is Alien. Ridley Scott, the crew did not know the rubber alien was going to pop out of that guy.
Here's why I think that's not okay. First of all, I don't think it's okay to scare people like that without their
I think that's hilarious.
consent. Second of all, you are trying to make that scare more real. What you're doing is you're making the rest of the movie more fake, because you are showing us that when they act scared, you can tell the difference between when they act scared and when they're actually scared. And so I don't think it works. I think what you are trying to do is you are trying to use unreality to create a mirror of reality. And every time you have to bring in reality, like you have to drag that boat over the mountain, no, fuck you, make a movie. You have to actually shoot at your actors, no, fuck you, make a movie. You have to actually kill a bull, no, you don't.
And really,
make a movie.
What you're doing is you are going from artiste to power junkie.
Yeah.
You are just trying to show everyone that you can, this is the amount of power I have. I can scare you whenever I want. I can make you do whatever I want.
And it's in a movie that is like really examining masculinity and cruelty culture and everything like that. It is a masculinist move to actually kill that bull.
Sure.
That is exactly what an asshole male director thinks you have to do. And I don't think that's what this guy is. You didn't have to do that. And it doesn't matter if they were going to kill the bull because you tortured it to death.
Because it was going to die in a humane way, allegedly, Like,
yeah.
All right, pound for pound performance, Greg.
The bull. So you love to hate him. I would not want to see this guy ever, but Benito actor Javier Camara, from the first time you see him on film, you're like, there's something distasteful about this guy. And that begins a journey where you constantly are saying to yourself, no, he's okay. And then being like, no, he's really not okay. And I think that he makes every turn of that.
To be able to walk that line, he is not threatening. We've talked a lot about what's traditional, what's not traditional. He's not threatening in the traditional sense of what that could mean. He's not looming over somebody. Right? He's not using his physicality over people. But
even when people feel
threatening.
his danger, they don't let themselves feel his danger.
He looks like a soft boy. So they're like, no, I'm not going to show weakness because of a soft boy.
He's the roundest, considering he's not actually very heavy,
he's
the roundest person in the world.
His face is a thumb.
Ryan, what's yours?
Ryan.
I thought this was so obvious. And then at the last second tonight, I went with Marco. I went with Dario Grandinetti because I thought this was a two-hander, and it's not. It's like Marco was the main character, and we watch him arc. We watch the Marco arcos, and we realized that, like, Benino.
You were warned.
Benino is, in a lot of ways, a plot device for all of Marco's growing and figuring out what it is to be a man. And he changes his definition of a man constantly throughout the movie. Like, he is always redeveloping, even though he is old. He has his own apartment. He has lost his hair. He is a fully grown adult.
Ew.
Like, he is established.
What a man! There are some handsome bald men in this movie. This movie is like seriously a tribute to really good-looking bald men.
I think I like the fact that he has to just go through everything that Almodóvar asked him to as far as emotions go, and then never make me think like, oh, you're just doing that thing that Almodóvar asked you to do it. I think is amazing.
Ryan.
Yeah, I think they're both killer, and it would not work with them. But I do think Benino has the even though he plays it mellow, he has the flashier role that like draws the eye. And Marco on the rewatches, you're like, oh shit, this guy is quietly acting his bald head off. Finally, director's signature moment, Ryan.
I mean, I think that it has to be based on his other movies. You don't know shit about genders, and I'm going to make you rethink everything you know about genders. And the way that he creates the character of Lydia, and then on top of that creates the character of Marco and the very emotional Marco, and the very feminine Benino. Like the way that he talks and rubs lotion on his hands while he's talking. Like he wants his audience to think that he's gay,
Right.
only to like when the rape happens. It's also a surprise of, he's not gay. That all happens at the same time because there is no, with the exception of the late, great El Nino, who, stole the masculinity from this movie. Everyone is capable of anything as far as gender norms go. That's Almodóvar to me.
Gregory.
For me, it is, it's that interview. Because you are situated in you're like, I'm in the real world now. This is a realist movie and only like very realistic things are going to happen. And he doesn't want you that comfortable. And that interview, I watched a video about like his embrace of camp. And that interview, I think, is really that embrace of camp. Like the woman is made up in such weird makeup. She's acting so weird. She won't let her go. It feels like something out of a John Waters movie or something like that. And I just thought, man, that really helps me figure out the like temperature of this movie. That helps me figure out what's going on here.
I'm going to give that to Greg because we like specific moments here. And yeah, it's crazy that you picked that, Greg, without ever seeing others' movies because the bright, funny, but dark like combo is, I think,
that
Almodóvar.
Lydia getting up and being like, I told you I wasn't going to talk about this. And she chastised her. Don't say that I plan my interviews ahead of time. And then Lydia actually turning her head to leave. And she's just like, the way she grabs onto her arm, it like gets dragged away partially.
It made me want more female relationships in this movie.
Yeah. For a movie like about how men mistreat women, it's weirdly male-centered. Maybe that has to be for that reason, but we don't get a lot from...
Right. And I think that's his point, and also, for me, it's so in conversation with the rest of his filmography that it makes more sense. But out of context alone, that feels like a hacky argument, right? To be like, well, you should see his other movies to really get what he's trying to do. But honestly, guys, you should see his other movies. We're going to take the quickest of breaks. When we come back, we will announce who won and how we think While You Were... Nope, Talk to Her does.
Greg, this is so you. This is a fun.
I thought this was you. I thought this was a you-in.
Oh, fun for you guys to just start talking before I even get to introduce what's happening right now.
Oh, well, the show hasn't started yet. Nobody's been like...
This is just fellas being fellas.
Producer Dave, have we started?
Yes, Narf. That's a deep cut for the real ones. If I could revoke points right now, I would. They say, gentlemen, that a host's first real show of the season sets the reputation.
They say...
They say that.
Okay, no, yeah.
On the mean streets of podcasting.
I feel like we're about to get married by somebody who just got their credentials in marrying people.
And it is my greatest detriment. I beg your forgiveness to let you know that, Ryan, you got 38 points.
Wow.
Greg? You got 38 points. I don't know what to do here, and I'm sorry. You're both my best friend for the next week, and I swear to you, this will not happen again.
That's how you're going to leave it?
I don't know what to do right now. I guess you talked first, so I could remove one of your points. Greg wins.
I did it.
Are you happy now?
Once again, sitting quietly and just smiling has been to my benefit.
Is that the fucking Greg Highline story? That's how you've gone through your place in life. Just keep your mouth shut. Let it pop off. That has been Talk to Her. How do we feel this is going to do against 16 movies?
I think it's going to win. I know. I think this is the movie of the year, and like I think that we should keep in mind that it did so well, like that it was part of the zeitgeist of 2002. Right. Because sometimes what we're trying to do with these art movies is we're trying to like hammer them into also being popular movies in some way.
Both.
But this is 2002. This is timeless. Like I think it has everything we need. There's no way we're going to spend as much time thinking about any movie from this season as we do this one.
I mean, one of the movies that we're watching stars Spider-Man, so let's remember that.
Yeah, we do have Spider-Man. We do have Minority Report.
That's true.
But in the intro episodes,
movies that make us feel good,
I only declared 2 winners, which is pretty good for me.
The listeners.
Normally every movie.
One winner is each of our listeners.
Sure. But it was this one and one more that we will talk about at some other point. It's directed by Spike. It's 25th Hour. Those are the 2 that I was really nervous about all other movies contending against. And I am really stoked that we didn't go full letterboxer. I'm really stoked that the three of us we're like, this was roof stoof.
Oh,
but we have to talk it up.
And this is our ROM. This is our come and see. This is the foreign arty movie that fucks with our minds the rest of the season. And it was populist at the same time.
And, like, going back to Mulholland Drive, I do think that this is peak. I think that we are Mulholland Drive won its year.
Yeah.
And I think we're watching a director at their peak. I think everything that we saw before this movie was building up to this from this director, and then everything
it was chasing.
Sort of. And like, he's made so many great movies, but I do kind of feel that.
Man, bold words.
I hate when you end up seeing
The
like
best
there's someone's
first,
best shit
It's like
first.
reading
Yeah.
Watchmen is your first comic.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what's the point of the rest of this shit?
Yeah,
now?
like, oh, I guess I'll go watch one of his lesser films.
Well, that is, I think, a great start to what will surely be a great season. We've already said some movies that are coming up. Look out for, I don't know, Unfaithful, Battle Royale, all the tweeners that we
Holy
had fun
shit,
with.
what a season.
It is a chock-full season. I cannot wait to keep hosting. It is my pleasure. It is my honor. Until then, keep watching those movies.
Should I have recorded that? Scrappy do, scrappy through.
I would never say that.
Did not like your Al Bundy tweet today, by the way.
I know. Sorry about
I
that.
did. I physically liked it.
Pressed a button.
You press fucking button.
Twitter fucks with me because there's times where I like somebody's thing and the number will be like 13 likes, and then I like it and it goes 12 likes.
Yeah. Did I take someone with something away?
I'm constantly like, did Ryan already like this via pop filter and I removed it?
I don't do that. I retweet. I never like.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I like that. And I retweet that because anytime people do a poll and they're like this for this, retweet for this, comment for this, I'm like, well, whatever's liking is going to win because that's the easiest thing to do.
Do you want me to delete all that?
No, keep it. Go.
No, that's the post-credit. Shit. So I can just start?
Yep. You can clap first if that makes you feel better. You turkey.